dream since like baby. I've been joining forces with the likes of an A-team. Jumping off of buildings used to be so stimulating. Now I'm reaching new heights. I'ma need the off-whites. Play with the fire, you get burned. All of my struggles became lessons well learned. I got desires that keep me grounded, that's for sure. Cause one day we gon' make it out this earth. Where's your worth?
I'm sick of your talking, you got the wrong one. I'm taking your king and I leave him broken. If I am in second, it's after no one. Just give me a second to let them know. I'm the headline, the deadline. I'm ahead time, the rare kind. I'm a living legend, lethal weapon, master. The king is back like prodigal. I gave him time, it's been too long. Was silent calm, but now the storm's I'm not the one you can't ignore. I never line, the deadline. I'm ahead time, the rare kind. I'm a living legend, lethal weapon, master. Big time.
Welcome to the show, Matty Marshall. We are just a few weeks away from the start of the Major League Paintball season. First event's going to be in Tampa. It's going to be the 7th through the 9th of March. And I'm pretty excited for this conversation that I'm about to have today with one of the rising stars in the league, a guy that could have a really big 2025. It's Archie Barnes Jr. So last year, playing with Notorious, he definitely made a splash, and people were really excited about watching this first attacker in the Snake play, and enough that he got an offer in the offseason to move over, plays for Arsenal now. So Arsenal changing the name from Revo. But yeah, man, ABJ is a very exciting player to watch. And we've been kind of talking about in the push towards this new season with how much dramatic change has happened on so many teams in the pro league that it is kind of a new era. And I really do think that Archie Barnes Jr. is one of the most important people to watch of this new era of these new potential rising stars that are coming into professional games. So without any further ado, let's bring Archie on in here and see how we got to this point. Archie, how you doing, bud?
All right, Matty, how are you, man?
Doing well. We were just talking offline a little bit how I'm just getting ready for baby number 2, which is rapidly approaching, and then all the stuff, doing my homework, getting ready for this season. But yeah, man, I'm really looking forward to kind of picking your brain, man. The first thing I want to ask you is that I firmly believe that we are kind of heading into a new era of paintball with all the dramatic change that we've seen, and in a lot of the narratives surrounding a lot of these top teams, which we can kind of get into a little bit. But we're just starting to see some new rising stars, some fresh blood coming into the league, and you're one of those guys. But you've been grinding at this for years. Do you think we're kind of like, what type of new era do you think we're heading into? Do you not agree with that? Agree, disagree? What do you think?
I definitely agree. I literally was talking to Ryan Hoskinson earlier about it. I saw some of the Summit Awards nominees for Breakout Player of the Year, and I was looking at some of the players that were on there, like Tim Stetzel, Cyrus, Ryan, of course, myself, and I forgot his name, Meterman from Uprising. Mm-hmm. It's starting to change a little bit. You're starting to see these new and up-and-coming players, some new faces. So I definitely think there's a change for sure.
Yeah, and I think the question is, because there's so many different ways we could take this. I kind of want to get your story and pick your brain about different things. But when we had the transition into X-Ball and the current format of paintball started to solidify, it was kind of a lot of young broke kids around the field with some other rich dude or a dude that's a little well off that was kind of floating those kids. And now it's kind of a lot of more like grown men that have their regular lives together, and they've figured out how to dovetail paintball in with everything else, whether it's work or kids. And I've been coaching divisional teams, and these guys have regular jobs. There's just kind of gone are the days where it's a bunch of young little kids kind of coming in there and scrounging paint. I mean, some of those people are still there, but for the most part, the guys that are breaking into the pro league, like, you have a big boy job, you have a regular life, you have kids, you have a wife. Cyrus has a really good job. Guys have figured out how to chase the pro paintball dream, even guys that are getting paid, and figure out how to work that into their regular life. So how difficult was that for you to achieve?
It was extremely difficult. I'm very blessed and, giving honor to God. I'm in the position that I'm in. I have a good job. I've had it since I was 19 years old. I've been with the company for about 14 years now. And being able to balance life outside of paintball, having to keep my body in shape, eat right, stay in fitness, and then go to practices on the weekends is very challenging. Of course, you do a lot of your family activities on the weekends, and you have to make some sacrifices sometimes. And I really love the game, right? And I've given it my all, and that's why I'm here where I'm at now. But I've definitely had to make some sacrifices, miss some birthdays, miss some family functions and whatnot. But, my family understands that this is something that I love very much and, very passionate about. So they understand, working with my fiance now, we definitely had to come to some kind of compromise, right, in our relationship, where I was going out pretty much every weekend, double day every weekend, very super committed. She's like, well, where's my time? You know what I mean? And then now we have the little one now with the addition. We've been able to make the adjustments and come up with a schedule. And I've come to a compromise where, like, okay, I'll go work out locally at this field for a few hours, do some drills. I'll be back early, so that way we can go do some family activities. So it's definitely a challenge, especially having the new addition of the baby now. Not looking forward to any future additions. I'm set with my two boys, and I'm very happy about that. So,
yeah. So I've had this conversation with so many different people throughout the years, but it is really hard, especially when you have kids and a significant other. But I also feel that it really kind of depends on how much your significant other understands what the game means to you, or how much positive it gets in there. It's also a little bit of a different conversation when it gets to the point where you're getting compensated to play this game, because then it's a little bit easier for them to be like, oh, how many weekends are you gone this year? What are you making? Okay. But when you're working your way to that point and you're paying to play the game, it's a little bit harder to justify that time away, especially when it's costing you, a decent amount of money every year to play it. But paintball does, like, what does it give to you? I mean, what does the game mean to you? Why do you love it so much?
Well, like many others, right? They treat it like a therapy session. For me, it's an escape. It's a way to get away. It's a way to release the aggression and anger that I've built up all throughout the week, and just the pure love for the game since I was a kid. I was 9 years old when it was introduced to me. I fell in love right away with it. And I will admit, my first time when I went, I was terrified, but I kind of outgrown that and, gotten past that. But just the overall love for the game is always near and dear to my heart, and my family sees how much it means to me. So, for me, like I said, it's just an escape from reality, right? It's when I'm in those nets, reality is gone. I'm focused on what's in front of me, and I like going out and shooting people.
It's kind of fun to do, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dan Blazarian was on the Play the Game podcast. Shout out to Play the Game podcast, Tyler and Marcelo. Have had some really cool guests on there. I know you've been on their show too, and they definitely love the game. But Blazarian had said that it's the safest form of adrenaline out there. He's a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so he's done a lot of crazy things. And it is, we're playing war, but no one dies. It's kind of a really cool thing. Right. It's like a very special and unique thing. So let's jump to when you found it. Let's tell a little bit of your story here and how you got to this level. Because, again, you're playing for Arsenal this year, which is the new name for Revo. And if anyone's been around the game for a little bit, Arsenal was a pretty cool team back in the day. I definitely like the name Arsenal better than Revo, because even still to this day, people would look at not knowing that it's short for revolution, and the people would pronounce it Revo. It's just kind of confusing. So Arsenal is a pretty dope name. And Revo looks pretty good this year. But before we get to talking about Revo and talking about your bracket, so you started at 9? Was it a birthday party, like the age old, starting for everybody, or did you get into it in a different way?
No, it wasn't the cliche birthday party. It was more so I just got introduced to it from my best friend and his older brother. They had gone a few times, and They were telling me about it. My parents had no idea what paintball was. So when I asked them, hey, can I go? It was just like an immediate no. They were like, well, where do you even paintball around here? Because I'm from Vallejo. And if you're not familiar with Vallejo, it's deceiving, right? It could look nice from the outside, but it's pretty much the ghetto. And, I'm fortunate enough that I'm not in those parts of Vallejo anymore. I got my family about the ghetto, but I was introduced to it. And one of my first experiences was at American Canyon Paintball Jungle, which is right outside of Vallejo, one of the nicer parts. And right next to American Canyon Jungle was Sherwood Forest. And that's where I cut my teeth in like 2001-ish to like 2004. So like right at the golden age of paintball, right? That's when I was introduced to you, Rich Telford, and Greenspan and Oliver Lang and those guys. And that's when I found out that some of those guys were from up here from the Bay Area, and sometimes they would come visit Paintball Jungle. One of my idols, Angel Fragoza, is from Vallejo, and they had a field, I believe, on Mare Island, but I never got to experience that, unfortunately. Didn't have the money. I used to save up all my lunch money from the week. I used to get like $10 for the week, and I would just save that up with all my boys, and we would go out. We're talking about, this is when cases of paint were like $60, $70, $90 for the good stuff, right? And we would all share a case each, or just one case together. It was about me and like 3 of my buddies, and we would make it happen. We would go out probably once every 2 months or something like that. But, we had the old rental guns, that the Spiders and Piranhas at the time that didn't shoot well. And eventually, we got to where we're at now. But, paintball has been a kind of a, not a love-hate thing. I've always loved it. It's just that financially, I've never was consistent to play all the time. So I would have started a lot earlier. I'm pretty sure I would have, been professional sometime in like, I don't know, 2014 or 2012 or something like that. But, I just didn't have the finances to fund it. So.
Yeah, I got to definitely let people know that Vallejo is pretty rough around the edges, because I got a lot of family in the Bay Area and a lot of friends up there, obviously, from paintball throughout the years. But Yosh Rao used to live in Vallejo, and I went to stay with him on a July 4th, and I've never been in Vallejo for July 4th. So you probably know where the story is going, since you've probably spent a decent amount of July 4th in Vallejo. So its sun is starting to set. We're out in the backyard, and we're kind of chilling, just drinking some beers, enjoying the day. It's a beautiful day out. And right about sunset, we hear the first pop, 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 like full magazine unloaded from a pistol, not that far away.
Yeah.
And then pretty much for the next, I would say, no exaggeration, probably, because it was probably 5 hours straight. Every 5 or 10 minutes, there would be that. Every 5 or 10 minutes, for the entire night. It was, Vallejo's a little rough around the edges, man. So I'm glad you got your family out of Vallejo, because
Vallejo's got the heat, for sure.
Not the best spot. Yeah.
Right.
It was that was their celebration. So then, because I was looking back, because I remember kind of starting to see your face a while ago, and then I would hear, I always hear about the guys that are destined for greatness before I kind of really get to know them or see them out on the pro field. So I was starting to hear your name, around the NorCal guys, because I'm always asking people when I talk to guys that run teams or people that run fields, like, hey, who are the next dudes coming out of your area? And I started to hear about your name, and then I went to double check, or just kind of look to see how many teams that you'd played for. And just since 2017, like, you playing on different divisional teams, working your way up the ranks, bro, it was like close to 30 different names up there. I mean, there was a little like a couple kind of crossovers with like a D4 team this, and it would be the same D3 team, but I was like counting like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I was like, damn, dude, 29 teams. So you definitely have put your time in playing, just trying to find your way, and then so because there's a lot of guys, a lot of divisional players out that watch these shows to try to glean some sort of information and about how this is all done. And so what was that kind of like? I mean, how did you go about your divisional journey to try to upgrade your skills, your experience, and try to put yourself in the best position to be on the best teams?
So I started in 2017 with a team called the NorCal Bandits. That was my first team, but I stayed with that same roster for about 3 years. We just had 3 different name changes. So we went from NorCal Bandits to NorCal Infamous, where we were under Thomas Taylor for a bit. And then we transitioned to Vallejo Gray Area, where we were under Ryan Podesta for a little bit as well. And then I transitioned. You talk about making hard decisions and wanting to excel and wanting more out of the game. You have to make those necessary sacrifices to elevate, and do what's best for yourself. So, if that means having exposure and going to a better team to compete at a higher level, right? I ended up playing for a very, very short period with the NorCal Kings for a little bit, which is a very solid program, and they compete in the WCPBL realm with Mike Hinman and them. And then I transitioned pretty early, I think maybe my 3rd or 4th year, just playing competitively to Excessive. We played D2 and semi-pro for a bit, and that meant a lot to me. Eddie Tomeo was a good friend of mine. Reached out to me, gave me the phone call. I got really emotional because I grew up watching Excessive, right? Like I said, I watched you, Rich, and a lot of the other guys that are iconic on Excessive. And just to have that label across my chest was, mind blowing. And then getting to know Gina and Junior at Modesto and Extreme, and they gave me that opportunity. They gave me those tools. They saw how hungry I was, and they gave me the resources, right? And I took full advantage of it. And from there, I took the game seriously. Like, I had always taken it seriously, but I took it to a whole nother level when I got in Excessive. I took care of my body. I did the necessary things I thought I needed to do to be a professional, which is taking care of your body, eating right, having the laser focus of being disciplined. And my goal from there on was to go professional. And I had got exposure at WCPPL. Mike Hinman saw me, and he had his new iteration of Aftermath at the time in 2020, when we had, Joe Barrett and Josh Hallberg and TK and them. And, that's where I kind of planted my feet, right? I started to get exposure there from Mike Hinman, and he taught me a lot. And just being around him and soaking up as much information as I could. And he beat me into the ground, right? Not literally, but, mentally, right? He can be he can press the issue with you, right? He just wants to see how far he can go and what the best he can get out of you. And he definitely got the best out of me afterwards. You know what I mean? I still hold on to some of the things that he said to this day. Long story short, my stint at Aftermath was cut short. Some I wasn't getting any play time, and that hurt my pride a little bit, right? So I was just like, you know what? It's a humbling experience. Let me go back down to semi-pro, get some play time, get the experience, because I'm a hands-on guy. I need to be on the field. That's the best way I'll learn, is to be in the shit. And when I'm in the shit is when you get the best out of me. So that happened. I went back down and played with Excessive again for a little while. And then I got the call from Notorious. And I think that was the first time I've ever had my name announced by you and Rich when you guys came up for I think it was the first or the second NorCal with the regional events.
I remember. Yeah. That was Yeah, I remember. That's when I'd heard about you before that, because obviously, good friends with Junior, obviously have the legacy with Excessive and tons of connection to NorCal. Shane Pestana was another dude that would mention you as well too. But yeah, no, and that's because when we started, because it's tough, right? There's 200 pro players and 20 pro teams, and I try to keep abreast of as many of obviously all the pros. but it's like the guys that are getting the most spins. It's, because people come up and they'll be like, "Hey, Matty, say good things about me." I'm like, "Hey, dude, it's a simple equation. If you play really well, I'm forced to talk about how awesome you are. And if you're not playing, you're not really on the radar that much. And then if you aren't playing very well, I mean, I'm forced to talk about how you guys just lost 4 points in a row and just lost 4 games in a row, or how you're playing catch out there, man. Like, it's all on you, brother. I'm just a mirror with a microphone. That's it. So whatever you do, I'm just going to try to magnify that as best I can with whatever God gave me to do it, But you also had a good attitude, though, because I remember there was I can't remember exactly what it was, but you guys, I can't remember the exact moment, but I was given some criticism out off camera. It was just like in between games or something, and you took it like a grown-ass man, dude. You were like, "Yep, absolutely." And then I've just heard really good things about you from people that have worked with you, because people talk behind the scenes, man. Like when a coach calls me up and he's like, "Hey, what have you heard about this guy?" And I mean, I'm doing him a disservice, and I'm being disrespectful to his organization if I give him misinformation. So I'm forced to talk about what I've heard, right? And everything I heard about you was all positive. Great dude to work with, family man. Got himself out of the ghetto of Vallejo by working his ass off. Like, it just nothing but good things the entire time. So that's why those are the people that we want to elevate, man. Like the people that made it out of hard circumstances, that have a cool story, that work their ass off for greatness.
But yeah, man, just it's been a long journey, right? Like, just having a good attitude is everything, I think. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not willing to be an open sponge and humble yourself, because I'm surrounded by guys who've been doing this for 20, 30 years, you know what I mean? As old as I am, I'm almost 33, but I've only been playing since I was like, 27 competitively. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm the most arrogant or cocky guy ever, but I'm confident in how I play because I have the athleticism. And as long as I can learn from the top tier players, and someone's trying to give me constructive criticism, who am I not to take that criticism and do something with it, right? Like, why would I brush that off? That's crazy. Someone's been doing this for years. Like, I'd be an idiot to not listen. I mean, granted, some people have different teaching techniques or different advice and whatnot, but I'm open to it all, right? Even now going into this new team with Arsenal, like, I know I was kind of like a big name or a big topic during the offseason, but even going to that new team, I'm not the alpha guy. I'm not the rah. I'm not the, I'm a student of the game. I'm going there to still learn, you know what I mean? And be a sponge alongside those guys to see how much more beneficial I can be for the team.
Yeah, so let's fast forward a little bit real quick since we're bringing up Arsenal. What was that like in the offseason, man? Because this is one of those tough situations where there's not a lot of old people to consult on this, like there's a few of us, but it's hard, it's like kind of hard to find your way in this, especially if you're becoming a name, right? But you were definitely, it was one of those things where coming into this year with what I was hearing about how you were playing, you were one of the guys that we were kind of looking like, oh, let's see how ABJ plays in 2024, because if he plays well, there's a decent chance that he might get picked up on one of the top teams, or a team that's willing to, compensate him. And then that's kind of depend, it's how well you play and how good you do, and how well your team does too. That's kind of the thing. Because to be honest, like we throw the word elite around, elite this, elite that. I mean, in reality, truly the true elite players out there out of the 200 players are the teams that have led their team to victory. Like those are the truly elite guys. So it's like, it's kind of hard when you're trying to crack into that. And also it gets a little bit it gets interesting in the off season. But what was your experience like? I mean, how difficult was that for you to have to, have different teams trying to elicit your services and then figure out where you wanted to go?
Oh man, that was a hell of an off season. Very, very, very stressful. So I think what did I say? I said it on PTG. I think it was 8 teams, but in actuality, it was 10 teams that reached out to me, and I have all the receipts for them. And all 10 of them kind of simultaneously reaching out to you at the same time. You have to be your own agent, right? You got to kind of leverage yourself in a way like, okay, well, what can I get out of this situation? You know, what's going to benefit me? What's going to benefit my family? And what does that current team have going on at the moment? Like, where is your best fit? And, you know, I weighed out my options, and Tom Ford, owner of Arsenal, he was very persistent and consistent in his communication with me. And, you know, what he picked up with Revo, and I was looking at that roster, I said, wow, this is already a solid foundation. You know, sure, some of the better teams that have the big names, obviously I would have to compete for some playing time, which is something that I took into consideration. And, you know, and I was all for that. That's fine. But something in me is like, I want to compete against those big names, right? Like, I don't want to just be alongside with them. Like, it's easy. Yeah, easy dubs you can put on the table. You know, paintball is not easy, obviously, right? But it's hard to be consistent. But when I was looking at the most was roster from top to bottom, you know, and from what I saw with the Revo guys, now known as Arsenal, you know, we got rid of some people, and we added some people back, and including myself. Well, I'm brand new, but I thought I could be of great benefit with the team. And me and Caleb Abel obviously play the same position. I think we do complement each other. I'm a bit more aggressive. I think he's a little bit more methodical. But being around Cody Mikowski and Benny Carroll, Elliot Weaver, Shorty, you know, all those guys are super talented. And I know that their resume doesn't say they don't have like all these super wins and whatnot, but it's a very, very good team. And I think going into this season, 2025, you know, we might surprise a lot of people. And like going back to your initial question, yeah, the decision wasn't easy at all, right? Some people kept giving me the expression like, well, you know, you're the prettiest girl at the dance. You know, pause. But, you know, people want to come up to you. They want to talk to you. You know, they want to offer you some things like, and that was hard. And like I said, I weighed out different options, and it was hard to say no to a lot of those teams because a lot of those teams were very iconic, and I grew up watching, and it was very, very hard to say no. And, you know, I talked with the wife, and I talked with my mom, and, you know, they all kind of just thought, well, you know, do what makes you, or make the decision that you feel will make you the most happy. And, you know, I've worked my ass off to get to this point. I'd probably say the things that I do outside of paintball, probably more than half the league does, right? Like, I do a lot of shit to prepare myself for tournaments and to keep my body in shape and just exceed certain things. But you know, Tom was able to work with me, very accommodating, and you know, he gave me what I wanted and how I was raised. My dad always taught me, hey, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So, you know, whatever you're asking for and that they're willing to do it, you know, why not?
It must have been, I mean, it's got to be kind of cool to work your ass off for years and grind your way through the divisions and, you know, and then one day, you know, through your hard work, all of a sudden half of the pro league after, you know, a couple years in and at that level, half the pro league is hitting you up and be like, hey, ABJ, what are you doing next year? Are you happy? What's it going to take? What's it going to take? I mean, that's got to be cool, right? Like that's a pretty cool feeling to, I mean, yeah, it's stressful because then you got to be like, okay, well, the decision that I make is going to have very real implications for obviously, you know, what you're getting compensated, but then also your chance to win paintball tournaments, because, you know, that's kind of the most important thing at the end of the day. I do want to kind of talk about the Arsenal lineup a little bit here, but just have a couple more questions about, you know, should somebody find themselves, I mean, what advice would you give to an up-and-coming divisional player that wants to be in your shoes one day? as far as, what drills to do, how to kind of approach. I know you kind of already talked a little bit about it, and then just the mentality. Obviously you said closed mouth doesn't get fed, and you do work on your body and to eat right. But what did you do that was a force multiplier for you, kind of coming up the ranks to acquire the skills that you need and to go out there and get that experience?
I just exposed myself to different atmospheres, right? Whether it's traveling or being around professional players. Like I went to, I forget, I was playing, I think I was like semi-pro at the time. I went to an impact practice. I wasn't invited. I just went just to go soak up some knowledge and watch and see it in live action, how these guys interact, how they talk to each other, how they dissect the game on and off the field. I stress this enough to a lot of the players that I help. I'm helping one of the guys right now, actually, a young guy, Graylin. And we were just at my local field over here at Jungle, and we were doing drills. We were fine-tuning things, working on detailed things in your shot, how to be more accurate, how to think in certain situations. I would also encourage like these young guys to just have a positive attitude, right? And not be so negative or cocky all the time either, right? Yeah, you can be a good player. That's cool. You can have the best shot in the world. That's cool. But when the time comes when you need to ask questions and learn something, you need to be able to be humble enough and to be open-minded to taking criticism. Because a lot of people have soft egos. And like me, I don't have a soft ego at all. A D5 or a D6 guy come up to me and be like, hey, you should run with your left hand. Because I have a habit of running with my gun in my right hand. You know what I mean? And I'll still be like, oh, well, he's kind of right. Like, so that kind of stuff. Like I wouldn't, I don't know. It's a lot to the game, right? Like there's so much you can learn.
Yeah.
And I would also, stress watching game film. Like I watch a lot of Go Sports film. Like I just, I hear how you guys announce it and how you guys kind of break down the game too, and listening to that detail. And then also watching it, like a lot of the times I pay attention to like Meter Ninos, Berdnikov, Marcelo, those guys, when they're deep into Sunday, why do they make these decisions? Why do they feel that they could make these decisions? You know what I mean?
I mean, I couldn't agree more with every single thing that you've said. It's just a thing. It's like, especially when you're playing divisional, like this is an expensive sport. It's an incredibly fun sport, but it's not like it's not soccer. It's not baseball. You can't just show up to the field with one baseball and a bat and some gloves and go play, baseball. Paintball is different. You got to paint. So it's kind of one of those things that it always, I think and we're starting to see this a little bit more, but the most successful divisional players and teams, I mean, you're a perfect example of this. You sought out the knowledge. You're like, I need mentors. And that mentor doesn't necessarily have to be the person who's standing right next to me, giving me the business. It could be, learning it the easy way by watching it through, watching the webcast, or, like you said, showing up and just listening to how Impact has conversations after a point. What are the tidbits of information that they need to gather to increase their chances out there with their tactics and their strategy? So kind of, being greedy for that and being proactive to gain that knowledge, I think is crucial. So we are starting to see, guys go out to and just try to get a coach, or, try to find better teams to play. And it's definitely working for a lot of guys. So it's just kind of cool that you did this the right way, man. Again, that you come highly touted as, and then you've had some really good looks out there, man. I can't wait to see what you do this year. I mean, Arsenal is legit. And there was a lot of drastic moves made. I mean, Devin Stewart, Ethan Adams, and Clint Moore, and Frank Antetomaso are no longer on the team. And then, Tom was willing to go out and, get you, keep Weaver around. I think Benny is prime for, I mean, he's already been pretty solid, but I just love watching him play paintball. He's very graceful out there. He's got a good style to the game. Weaver's a beast. Minkowski's solid. And then Caleb Abel, I totally agree with you that Caleb Abel plays a different brand of first attacker in the snake than you play. You're a little bit more aggressive, but it's going to give Tom options. But it's just, and then also I think that watching the creativity that Caleb on a practice to practice basis that he kind of brings to playing the snake. If some of that rubs off on you and you get a little bit more diverse in the way that you are looking at, how to put angles together in your attack, I mean, it's going to make you even more lethal. And it could, you got some options over there. There's no real, when I'm looking at that squad, it's a pretty stacked squad as far as the talent is concerned. And then the team over time has developed the experience needed. I mean, last year was a little bit of a rough finish for what is now Arsenal. It was Revo last year. They were kind of hanging in there in the beginning of the year and looking pretty decent. With the 3-2, then 3-3. These are overall standings or wins and losses. 3-2. So those first 3 events were good, but then a 1-3 and a 1-3 and 2 Sundays missed to close out the year. Change of coach as well too. Chris Jansen is pretty experienced. It's just a team that individually, man for man, it's a pretty dynamic team as far as their abilities physically, the skill that they have, and the experience that they've had, and they've taken some tough losses and gotten a lot, just mentally tough over the past few seasons. So, I think that's a team that could be on the rise this year, and I think that you could be a big force multiplier for them in the snake. I mean, again, there is a reason why half the, because when I was, we had some talks, but I didn't realize there was 10 teams. I didn't realize it was like 10. That's literally half of the pro league was like, hey, dude, ABJ, let's do this. What's it going to take? So you choose Arsenal, which honestly was a little bit of a surprise to me. I mean, I know Tom and I go back, Tom 4, and I know it can be very convincing. But I was thinking, with your, the fact you have 2 kids and a regular job, I was just thinking maybe, a team that you weren't going to have to fly all the way to the East Coast, but now you get to stack up some frequent flyer miles. So whenever next vacation you go on, your wife's going to be stoked about that, or your fiance is going to be stoked about that. But talk to me about your bracket here for the next event or the first event. Heat, Dynasty, Ironman, you guys, and then New York Extreme. We'll start with Houston Heat. I got a chance to see Houston Heat. We had that. We're trying some new formats out in Dallas, and that was the first time that they'd gotten their new team together. And the new guys looked pretty good. They were going through, I think, a little growing pains trying to, first practice with everyone there, trying to figure it out. It was also really cold the day before, so having some issues with that. But they still got a lot of talent on that team, man, a lot of experience. What are your thoughts on Houston Heat?
Well, the core guys that they kind of kept with Ronnie and Chad George, who else do they keep? They keep Mishka, yeah?
Yeah, Mishka, Ryan Moorhead.
Ryan Moorhead, and even the new guys that they got the core guys from Blast Camp. I think that were pretty solid. La Papa, Soap, and I forgot his name. He does the YouTube channel. It's interesting to say because I'm interested to see what that dynamic will be like.
You talk about Jackson Frey?
Yes, Jackson Frey. Forgive me, friend. I don't mean to butcher your name, but I think it's a solid program. I think it's a solid team. It's just a matter of how fast they come together and they play well. I don't know, man. It's hard. A lot of these teams have kind of rebuilt a lot of roster changes, a lot of core guys going and leaving, right?
Well, yeah, we talked about the, how there have been these drastic changes within the framework of these rosters. And I mean, Houston Heat, obviously with the, loss of Tyler Harmon, Konstantin Fedorov, and Connor Kelly, that is a lot of a departure of talent. La Papa had some really good looks. I mean, Soap and Jackson also looked decent in some points. I mean, they're playing these top teams out there, and it was like 83 degrees on the first day and then like 50 degrees the second day. So it's kind of tough to dial the paint in when it's 83 one day and 50 the next. So that was a little bit of an issue for some of the squads out there. But individually, they all looked pretty crisp. I mean, excuse me, it looked like they'd been playing some paintball. But as we well know, that's kind of the question, right? When you have a big changeover with the roster, how quickly can you get everybody to vibe? How much time do you have in that combat headspace with each other, to get that head check, unspoken communication? Oh, okay, well, Archie just made a move. Now I got to do something with this because we got a minute to try to win this point and we're in position. And, it's that type of stuff. How quickly is that going to come together for Heat? But it is Houston Heat. I mean, that's a very, very successful team. And they still have guys that are world champions on that squad that are still hungry for it. They seemed really happy to be there too. I mean, Houston Heat had pretty good attitude about everything. They pretty excited to get the season started. And then with San Diego Dynasty, they're obviously undergoing a decent amount of change as well too. Obviously the big departure of Marcelo, and then they pick up Joe Barrett and Kyle Berry. They're having a big practice this weekend at ASG here in SoCal. So it's kind of a big weekend for San Diego Dynasty to kind of get it together. Obviously, got the new coach Mike Bianca. So the question is, well, it's one, how good is the new look of the team going to be, and then if they are going to look good, how long is that going to take? Is it going to be right out the gate? Right. Can Dynasty make these changes to the puzzle and come out and still be as competitive as they were at the end of last year? Even though last season they did miss 2 Sundays. Same with Houston Heat. They've won the World Cup 3 times, and twice in a row. It's been a few years though since they've been able to put a win on the board, hence the drastic amount of change. And then with the Ironmen, it's like, okay, well, the Ironmen have been going through a rebuild for a while. I'm guessing that's one of the 10 teams that hit you up. Well, let me ask you this question. Out of Dynasty, Heat, Ironman, Arsenal, obviously you play on Arsenal, and the New York Extreme, did all of those teams hit you up in the offseason to play with them, or just a handful?
All of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's going to be kind of interesting too. But the Ironman, obviously, you're a NorCal guy, and I know Shane Pestana. Did you think about making the move to the Ironman in the offseason? Was that in one of the teams in the last bit of consideration?
I did. They were high on my list. Shane, he's been after me for a long, long time, and he's always in my ear, and he's given me some words of wisdom here and there. I actually just got to see him, I think was that last week. I was out there playing with him in Sonol, in one of the newer fields, and helping him and his the girls, the San Francisco Sirens, get ready for NXL. And it was a high consideration. I met with those guys, and meeting with Billy Wing and some of the other staff members. They were definitely high on my list, right? Ironman is a very iconic name in paintball. And to say that it wouldn't be a dream to play for them is it wouldn't be true because it is. But it was a very hard decision for me to say no, right? Because Shane is a very, very nice guy, and he was very encouraging and wanted me to come to the team. But Arsenal just had something better to offer, so yeah.
And then the biggest question mark in the bracket is New York Extreme. I talked to, before they had their tryout, I talked to Harris, and we were kind of going through his list of guys and that they were going to bring on the team. I mean, they definitely have some, a couple up and coming killers on that team and some experience, bringing some guys back in with like Will Hennessy and Josh Taylor. Hennessy's had some big moments out there throughout the years. Taylor has as well too. So he's one of those teams I gotta talk to Harris again and see exactly what they're, now we're heading into the last couple weekends of practice before the event. So they've had a little bit of time to try to solidify that roster, but it is a team that so it's New York Extreme got relegated, but then this is essentially the old ML King. So they kept a couple of those guys, but they again had a bunch of change. So it's going to be the same question that we're asking about these other squads. I mean, if you look at it, really the team, well, I guess Arsenal actually had just as much as changed because you guys had, got rid of 4 bodies. So, I mean, every single team in this bracket has had drastic amounts of change in the offseason. Who do you think, okay, so obviously you're going to pick you. What's the other team that comes out of this bracket? And then who do you think, in your estimation, and then do you think we're going to catch a wild card out of this bracket?
Dynasty would be my first pick, and I think Houston Heat would be my wild card team.
Okay. Let's go to bracket 1. You got Legion, Damage, Diesel, Aftermath, and the Sea Dogs. Who is the top 2? And do you think a wild card comes out of this bracket?
Yes, I'm gonna go Russians 1, damage 2, wild card Diesel. I think that aftermath kind of had, they lost some of their core players in David Ramirez and their main snake player. They still have Grayson Gladstone and Steven Masterek, but Sea Dogs, they're the rookie team coming in. I don't know much about them other than them having a solid semi-pro season. But I'm just going to go with what I know. So the Russians and damage.
What about Group B? X Factor, Fit, Energy Elite, Hurricanes, or the Tauntauns?
I'm going to go X Factor at 1. And fuck it, I'm going to go with Paintball Fit at 2, right? I think they played a solid game. I think they're riding high off of confidence. And we know already what San Antonio offers. They got Montemayor back, solid hitters, always elite, always top 5. So they're going to make it out. Paintball Fit, I feel like I said, they're going to ride on that high. They practice all the time. And it showed, right? They got the win at World Cup. And I think they make it out of that group. I think NRG Elite kind of, pretty much essentially a new team, kind of rebuilt, players kind of coming in. Hurricanes, always a solid. It would be a hard choice for my wild card of the Tauntauns and the Hurricanes, but I'd probably pick – oh, man, that's a hard one. I love my boys in New Orleans, but I'm going to have to go with Tauntauns. I think what they have going over there too, and I know they didn't show at Cup, but they have a solid organization as well. They got Axel, and they got Colombo and my boy Marky over there. So, I'm not going to sleep on those guys. So I would pick them as my wild card.
And they got Fedorov, who is going to be interesting to see how Fedorov plays with a new team. So it's kind of – well, let me ask you this question before we go to C.
We need the old Fetty back.
Yeah, it's when Fedorov's on, that dude is sometimes just unstoppable. If Fedorov came to the paintball field and it all kind of clicked for him, there's a reason why that dude's going to be a first bout Hall of Famer. He when he's on, he is the definition of elite. That dude got paintball famous by running and gunning to the 50-yard line as fast as I'd ever seen anyone run and gun back when he was in his early 20s. So, and it could be interesting to see. That could be talking about how. Or we always talk about how Legion is the fastest paced team in the league, which is astounding considering that they pretty much only play 5 dudes. But I think the Tauntauns might give them a run for their money this season because they got a ton of aggression and a ton of fast dudes on that team too. So that they're gonna be a fun team to watch. Well, what do you think is the hardest bracket? What's the bracket of death?
I'm gonna go with Group A, right? I think that Diesel showed some light at the end of the tunnel, right? When they're at World Cup, they showed potentially what they could do, what they can be about, right? We kind of were expecting that last year and the year before that. But, they made some changes, and it seems like the guys are kind of putting things together, and things are starting to come together for them. Damage is damage. They're top, elite all the time, and Russians are Russians, right? They're one of the more, or probably, if not the most aggressive team in paintball. Very methodical when it comes. I hear how their campers ran, and I'm like, wow, very calculated. Okay.
So let's jump over to Group C. You got Impact, Shock, Infamous, Uprising, and Leverage. Who's your top 2? And do you think we catch a wild card out of here?
Maybe I was picking this wrong. Am I supposed to pick a wild card just in general out of all of them, or just?
Well, no. Only 2 go, right? But it's just it's like who are your top 2? Because 2 move on, and then we get 2 wild cards. But if a wild card comes out of this division, who do you think it would be? So,
I'm gonna go with Impact. 1 is definitely gonna make it out. I think Aftershock. Also, they made some slight changes. They got Todd Martinez at the helm. Very solid program. I think they come out at number 2. Oh man, Infamous and Uprising. I think I'm going to go with Infamous just based off of what I've seen at practice, and we practiced them in Florida recently. Those guys have, some good players on the team. Geiger, Patient, Jonah. Rob Velez and all those guys. I think they're going to do really solid. So I would pick Infamous as a wild card. And then, Uprising, those guys run deep, like 15. So it's kind of hard to say. I know a lot of the times they run the core guys most of the time, but, and I think Leverage is the newer team, obviously the rookie team. But lots of talent on their team, right? I pay attention to them in semi-pro, and Chris Caputo and some of the other guys are doing pretty good. So, I like the way the league is going, man. It's looking good. It's looking good. It's looking real good.
Yeah, it's just, again, to me, after watching this for so many years, there's a lot of captivating stories, and it gets even more magnified when you have as much change as we've had. So when you're kind of looking at this, as we've kind of been talking about in the offseason, there's only a few teams that emerged untouched out of the offseason madness. Uprising was one of those teams, and then PB Fit was another. Legion will have their same starting five. They tried to go after a ton of different dudes. I'm sure that was one of the teams that threw an offer at you. And then, yeah, it's just it's going to be a very interesting year. I'm the one thing I'm wondering is, are we going to have the same parity that we've had before? Because last season there were a ton of top teams that didn't make Sundays, and some teams, it was just anyone could beat anyone at any time, and I'm just hoping that that's going to still be the case. I think so. I hope so. But yeah, just a lot of unanswered questions for a lot of these franchises as we're about to kick off event number 1. Well, Archie, man, I really appreciate you sitting in here with me, and I just think this is a really good chance for you on a team that, could the way that you play the game, the way that you and Caleb are different as a snake attacker does give the leadership of Arsenal different looks, and it's going to keep you guys both fresh. And so to see who's going to kind of emerge between you and Caleb, and Caleb has more experience than you in the pro league, but you have been a force multiplier out there for the teams that you've played against, and everybody noticed. So, and then there's a lot of closers on your team. There's a lot of guys that are good in the scramble, that are good when, the game plan's out the window, dude. It's 3-on-3 and, or whatever, 3-on-4, and the chaos has started to set in. We always call that the scramble. And you have a lot of guys that think very quickly on their feet in those situations. Cody Mikowski, Benny Carroll's good at that. He's also good at starting that off too. And then even, Caleb's been good at that as well too, closing after someone else kicks it off from a different part of the field. And then Weaver's excellent at that. So yeah, I think you guys got a legit chance to go deep on a Sunday and put the first win on the board ever in this incarnation of the Pro League for what is going to be Arsenal now. So best of luck to you, man. Anything, anybody you want to thank, or anything that you want to say before we sign off?
I'll just say thank you to all our sponsors at Planet Eclipse, Hormesis, Pro DNA, Virtue, one of my personal sponsors at Clatter. Shout out to Andy Horvath and his partner. Just want to say thank you to you, Matty, for even considering me, having me on the show. It's truly an honor to sit across from you, obviously not in person, but, an icon like yourself, one of the most iconic people and iconic voices in the game. Like I said, it's truly a blessing to be here, and just say thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Hey, my pleasure, dude. Really, sincerely from the bottom of my heart, because one of the things I love about this game is all the cool people we get to meet along this crazy journey that is pro paintball. And you have a story that deserves to be elevated, man. Like you came up through some hard times and learned the game the right way, intentionally sought out hard passages through this in order to sharpen your sword so that you could get out there and eventually be a guy that's, getting compensated to play this game, and that we're all excited to watch this year, man. So yeah, it's been a pleasure to watch your career, and you're in the prime of your life right now. So, look at the Dynasty guys. They're still doing it at an elite level, winning tournaments. Greenspan won an MVP last year at 42 years old. So that's what's possible.
Crazy.
But yeah, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on here. And yeah, I can't wait to see Arsenal take the field. Again, it is going down here. So mark your calendars, March 7th through the 9th. First event going down in Tampa. We also have the Summit Awards going to be going down that Sunday night as well, too, as we honor some of the best in the business and getting things kicked off for this awesome, 2025 season and what is potentially a new era of this game. So, and then again, Archie, you are one of the guys kind of leading that charge with these up and coming players. So again, best of luck, bro. Everyone out there, I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Rumor has it, I'm a savage. Drop the classic, thinking back. Drop the classic, too established. That the magic, it's automatic. Got a mask, who was that? Living legend, lethal weapon. Mastermind, never tried. Tell him all.
Big dreams, I got big dreams since like baby. I've been joining forces with the likes of an A-team. Jumping off of buildings used to be so stimulating. Now I'm reaching new heights, I'ma need the off-whites. Play with the fire, you get burned. All of my struggles became lessons well learned. I got desires that keep me grounded, that's for sure. Cause one day we gon' make it out this earth, where's your worth?
I'm sick of your talking, you got the wrong one. I'm taking your king and I leave him broken. If I am in second, it's after no one. Just give me a second to let them know. I'm the headline, the deadline. I'm ahead time, the rare kind. I'm a living legend, lethal weapon, master. The king is back like prodigal. I gave him time, it's been too long. Was silent calm, but now the storm. I'm not the one you can't ignore. I never line the deadline.